Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. My name is Martin Warwick and we're here in San Jose in California at the NFV World Congress 2017, and I'm talking with a genuinely old and not so old friend, Don Clarke, Principal Architect Network Technologies at CableLabs. Don, great to see you again. What do you think is happening in the NFV and SDN space right now? We've been through 4 years ago when the first white paper came out. We had a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of then later what the British press used to call unnatural exuberance over it, and then it sort of settled down and things were going along nicely. And in the past 12 months or so there seems to have been a sort of countervailing feeling that it's not going fast enough and it's not all it's cracked up to be. What do you make of that?
It's not a surprise, really, at all. In fact, it's a surprise it's happened, so long into the journey. It didn't happen earlier.
Yeah.
The way that we started out on this thing was to be determined not to hype this thing up. We all knew about the Gartner hype curve and whether we're in the trough of disillusionment or wherever we think we are right now, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is that we set out knowing that when you announce with a fairly significant amount of support that you're going to transform the industry in some radical way, then you do expect a lot of people to really talk that up and say, well, this is really exciting, when you get the naysayers and the yaysayers, and they all get very excited and heated. And so we set out deliberately not to hype it up. We published the white paper, but we didn't do any PR, we didn't do any media jamborees. We announced it with the intent of attracting people that would work on the problem. Now, 5 years on, or 4.5 years on, we do see effectively some kind of disillusion that the money's not flowing from the operators in the way that, that we implied that it would do. But you know, when you transform an industry, then you need everybody working together. And I guess that we knew from the very beginning that, you know, very much networks people have very good understanding of networks, but they don't necessarily have a good understanding of software. And so you saw quite early on this clash of these big disciplines, really, networks and software. And I think that's where we are today, actually. I was going to go on and say that we really are looking at a situation now where the software industry really has picked up on NFV in a big way. And the networks industry is still trying to figure out how virtualizing networks can be delivered within the network environment.
How then, given what we've just been talking about and a degree of disillusionment being made evident, how do you maintain the momentum of NFV in the industry now?
I think we just have to be patient, and clearly for some of the smaller players, running out of runway, if you will, is a danger for them. And I think that's where the industry really has to look at some of the smaller players and work with them in a way that can give them confidence that there will be, return on the investment they're making. But this is a challenge for all technological advances and transformations, isn't it? Getting the timing right. None of us can predict when the vision that we articulate will come to reality. The way that I've always explained it is that you can never prove as an R&D person or a person that's an innovator when the rest of the world will realise that this is the absolute way to move forward. But what we do is we create the capability for the industry to move forward when it's ready. And it will be ready with the market forces will determine it to be ready. It's always been a surprise to me how long it takes the market to respond to the innovations that you create. But your creation of those innovations and themselves will create the market drivers that pull them into the market. So the best way I explain it is you can never really know the impact that you had until the future. But one thing's for absolute certain in my mind is that you need to do this to bring that future forward. You can't be sure exactly how far you bring it forward, but you bring it forward. And that's where we are with NFV. 5 years on, the question arises, had we not started the work in 2012, would the market even now be 5 years away instead of perhaps 1 or 2 years away?
Moving on again then, I want to talk to you about, didn't you join Mano recently?
Open source Mano.
Yes.
Yeah, the guys are actually having a session here this week. And yeah, CableLabs have been watching open source Mano for a while. It's a slightly different community. It is open source, but it's hosted under ETSI, as an industry specification group. The thing that attracted us to open source Mano was the discipline that was being applied by Telefonica particularly to that, and they reference explicitly the work of ETSI NFV, which of course for me, ETSI NFV is the foundation standards for the industry, or it provides the foundation on which the rest of the industry will build.
What seems to have happened over the course of the 4 years, that more and more initiatives, industry bodies are working on this, and there are so many different open ideas and fora now. What's the newest one? Onap. What is that? What's Onap, for example, and why are there so many? Open
Network Automation Platform, or Onap, is, I would say, a welcome development in one sense. One is it merges the open source code that's been released by AT&T into the open source community ecom and the OpenO code that's been developed within the OpenO community led by China Mobile and others. So had AT&T released ecom and created a separate open source Mano centered community, then you would have two very large communities effectively competing with each other. I hesitate to use the word competition because in many ways competition is valuable, but the main problem for our industry is fragmentation. So the question then arises, where does a large vendor send its key resources? Does it send it to one or the other? Does it have to make a choice? So the merger of those two communities, or at least the emerging community of ecom with OpenO, is a welcome development. And two CableLabs people are actually out in New Jersey this week. Igor Feinberg, who works for CableLabs as a security consultant, and Randy Levinson, our software architect, are both at the Onap meeting. We haven't formally joined Onap, simply to observe and see how the dynamic of Onap is playing out. And I'm interested, for example, in how they will assure security within that environment.
Interesting, isn't it? Because, I don't know, the idea was that, you know, NFV and SDN, but NFV in particular, was being driven by the operator community who'd felt they'd been locked into particular vendors for so long they wanted to change. And it seems that the competition that might have resulted from this isn't really there because there are too many initiatives. Is that too simplistic, or is that what's happening?
I think it's a little bit simplistic. I think the issue that we have is that we've not yet got a sufficient number of operators that have put skin in the game.
Right.
But that's understandable, because remember what operators, particularly telecommunications operators, they operate at vast scale. And once they enter or need a technology to deliver new service capability, that technology needs to be bought at scale and deployed at scale and managed and operated at scale. Right. So the big issue is you don't make these decisions lightly. You enter into a new domain of, in this case, a methodology NFV for implementing networks, then you have to have a reason to do it. And the reason to do it is that you're making an investment in a new capability for your company. And that's what we're really looking to now for operators that are about to make new investments. They will, without any doubt in my mind, be using NFV for that, and there's no question about that. We're not seeing any vendors offering legacy appliances anymore. The vendors are all virtualizing their products, and the challenge for the industry is to work out how to turn that NFV capability into an operating and production environment in the way that I would guess some of the software players do.
Great answer. Good interview as usual, Don. Thanks very much indeed.
You're welcome.